I don't know.
Say it with me. I don't know.
Good God, it is liberating. I am a towering mountain of ignorance. I don't know. We're taught to believe that everything has a reason. Now, I'm glad that we have the desire to understand the world. That results in all sorts of great stuff. We want to know everything. We're humans. We're curious. And maybe it's our culture. Maybe it's just humanity. But I think a lot of the time we end up mixing up thinking something with knowing something. Suddenly, I know that I don't know. But somehow everyone else seems to know. They all know differently from each other, but they all seem to know. What I'm saying is nobody's opinions are correct in the world. And yet it's impossible not to tie your opinions to your concept of self. And often people tie those things so closely together that they begin defending their guesses as if they're defending their very lives. In a way, they are. This is why it can be so impossible to talk about certain topics with certain people. They've tied those suppositions to themselves so tightly with knots of narrative and constructed reality and values that there's just no untying it. And maybe unsurprisingly, in those situations, the best course of action is just to be friends. The world as we perceive it, as we've built it inside of ourselves, is a lie that we tell to ourselves, not out of deception, but out of necessity. We simply cannot understand the world as it is, and so we construct. But sometimes I just have to tell myself the thing that is definitely true, the truest thing I can say, which is that I don't know.
This is the Everyone's Agnostic Podcast with Bob Pondillo and Cass Midgley.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 189 of the Everyone's Agnostic Podcast. I'm Cass Midgley. Today, Bob Pondillo and I interview Matt Vollmer, a former Vineyard church worship leader and a gay man. I've never included a straight guest's sexual orientation during the introduction, but I highlight Matt's because it is a big part of his deconversion story. He didn't allow himself to be himself till he was 44. His departure from faith followed his coming out gay by 6 months. Before we get into our interview with Matt, a couple of announcements. When we talked with Joy Hopper back on episode 186, her book wasn't out yet. It's now available on Amazon. It's a little hard to find because Unspeakable Joy, the name of her book, is a common phrase. Also, when I typed in Joy Hopper, the search engine on Amazon thought it was Joey Hopper, and it was a mess. Finally, I forced it to search for Joy Hopper, and I changed the search type to books only. Anyway, there's a link to her book, Unspeakable Joy, in the show notes of this episode if you can't find it. Also, second announcement, Marlene Wynell, who was our guest on episode 163 and 35, both of which are two of the most downloaded shows in the history of Everyone's Agnostic. She's a wonderful guest and an expert and a psychologist, and she does retreats for people that are deconverting from Christianity. And there's one coming up in San Francisco on April 20th through the 23rd. She says, harmed by religion, this weekend is your chance to come together in a small group that understands. The program includes presentations, discussions, and guided activities to facilitate both intellectual insight and emotional growth, providing a leap forward in one's personal development. Together we share personal stories, examine the effects of religious indoctrination, discuss the process of recovery, and take important first steps, support each other in releasing toxic beliefs and reclaiming our lives. So for more information, go to journeyfree.org, or you can call her at area code 510-292-0509. If you'd like to register, please call that number or book a free consultation with Marlene herself. That's journeyfree.org. About an hour into this interview with Matt, he references episode 177 with Jeff Haley and Dale McGowan as one that helped him take a less hostile position towards religion and those that still adhere to them. I was talking with a friend this week about other friends who have stuck with their faith, surprisingly, and he said some people just need it. He even had a friend tell him, I can't bear the thought of not seeing my grandma again. Implied in that perspective is, I don't care if it's true or not, I need to believe it's true, in order to hold myself together. I would collapse if I didn't have that hope. Now, are we to feel sorry for them? Are we to pity them? And I say no. Of all people, we ex-believers should have compassion on that guy. As post-faith people, we should know the good and the beauty that faith did for us until the negative outweighed the positive. And secondly, as atheists, we should know that this life is hard, and we should leave people alone to equip themselves with whatever they need to be happy or even stay sane. We can even have compassion, because we didn't stick with it for decades because it was fruitless or meaningless. I felt extremely powerful moments in my 20-plus years in the faith. Deep feelings, lots of tears, lots of magical moments. And we know how hard it was to scrape it out of our bones with chisels and knives. So we can have calm passion. Calm is a prefix meaning with, together, or in association. Passion comes from the Latin word passio, meaning suffering. So compassion means suffering with. So when your family member hangs on to their faith, we can say, I get that. I understand the suffering that makes belief in God a salve for the horror of a godless universe. I understand how seeing life through that lens can suspend disbelief and doubt and provide comfort. I used it for a long time before it stopped working for me. Perhaps some of us have even been tempted to go back, only to realize that it's not really possible, without an enormous effort keeping certain knowledge chained up in the basement. On another note, I'm reading Robert Bly's book, Iron John. Maybe some of you have read it. It speaks to tapping into the wild man, or woman, within each of us. He's critical of anything that tries to suppress our wildness or tries to tame us, including religion. Thoreau wrote, "We need the tonic of wildness. At the same time we're earnest to explore and learn all things, we require that all things be mysterious and unexplorable, that land and sea be indefinitely wild, unsurveyed and unfathomed by us." Unquote. I had a version of this mindset even when I was a Christian, because I believe it's in my DNA, and thankfully Christianity was unsuccessful at snuffing it out, despite rigorous effort. Life is not tame. The universe is not orderly. Fearful people want things to make sense, to be controlled and directed and even neatly organized in partitions and walls and boundaries. But nothing about the natural world, including us humans, will ever be successfully caged or controlled or domesticated. And that's not just something I love about life. It's the only way it could ever be. And so the brave must say yes to it. Nasir Gomi, in his book A First-Rate Madness, argued that the greatest leaders and world changers, including MLK and Gandhi, were a little bit crazy. Normal people don't do amazing things, at least not while they're being normal. By definition, they have to do something abnormal for it to stand out against the vast, boring sea of normalcy. I imagine these people are difficult to be around, like a tempest is hard to be around. The people around them must really love them just to endure their shit. But the people that have learned to love the wild things, the wild people, the people a little bit crazy, they've learned the trade-off. They get to live a more vibrant life than they would were they not around them. It's dangerous. It's unpredictable. It's insane sometimes. It's not for the faint of heart. Have people tried to tame you? Look at the artists that found their own voice, whether in music or painting or writing. They must be in touch with their inner wildness. Where are the people whose eyes are wide open? They're hiding none of the harshness and ugliness of life from themselves. Where are the people who get angry, get excited, get sad, whose emotions actually flow in sync with what's actually happening? They don't try to do the opposite like some people, like feign happiness when things are sad. This is the work of religions and reality deniers, whose lives are dominated by their insatiable desires that things be different than what they are. They're the fake-it-till-you-make-it crowd. But those who are aligned with reality and honest with themselves channel those passions into life-giving creativity. Kylie McBeath wrote, quote, "The more we disconnect from our own anger, the more fearful we become," unquote. The wild people are not passive. They just fight the right things. No-sayers are working just as hard to fight back reality as yes-sayers are fighting against the temptation to become a no-sayer. Now, you might think these 2 points are contradictory. My first point was to have compassion on those who are still no-sayers. My second point was to encourage us to be wild and accepting of what is and remain yes-sayers. And we can do both. We can be yes-sayers to what is, and part of what is we have no-sayers in our life. And we can say yes to the no-sayers and love them right where they are. Our guest today, Matt Vollmer, grew up in the church, devoted to his faith and active in music ministry from an early age. But all along, he harbored a devastating secret about his sexual orientation. He did his best to live a good, normal Christian life while looking for ways to overcome his constant desire for male intimacy. Finally, after going through 2 failed marriages and fathering 6 children, he came to a point of acceptance of this part of himself he could never change and started dating men. Shortly thereafter, he also walked away from religion entirely, embarking on a grand adventure of life like he never before knew possible. We taped the following conversation on January 28th, 2018.
We interview people you don't know about a subject no one wants to talk about. We hope to encourage people in the process of deconstructing their faith and help curb the loneliness that accompanies it. We think the world is a better place when more people live by sight, not by faith. Please subscribe to our podcast and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts.
Also, we offer these podcasts freely, and your support truly makes a difference. You can support us monetarily in 2 easy ways. You can pledge a monthly donation through Patreon. That's patreon.com/EA podcast. If you've pledged $1 per episode in the past because it was within your budget to pledge $4 or $5 a month, please go out to Patreon and change your pledge from $1 to $4 or $5 because Patreon forced us to change to a monthly pledge instead of a per episode pledge. And if you haven't made the change, you're now pledging $1 per month versus per episode, which might be why our monthly check was half of what it's been for over a year, which is around $400 a month. Thank you for your support. It helps my family, and they resent the amount of time I spend on this show less when it helps pay the bills. Secondly, you can leave a lump sum donation through PayPal at our website, everyone'sagnostic.com. Our opening monologue is an excerpt from a YouTube by Hank Green titled Towering Mountain of Ignorance. The music behind it is Never Know by Jack Johnson. And the segue music on this episode is a percussive ditty that I did. Also, at the end of the show, we feature a couple of songs by our guest, Matt Vollmer, and you can find his music on YouTube, Vollmer. And now, without further ado, our interview with Matt.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey, is this Matt? Hello.
Hey.
How are you? Good to hear from you.
Good.
This is
How about
Bob.
you?
Good. Go.
So, are you going by your full name and everything? Are you out and proud?
Matt Vollmer. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
No problem.
And you're calling from Virginia Beach?
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay.
Virginia Beach, what are you doing there?
Well, for work, I work for ECPI University in financial aid.
Okay. Which university?
ECPI University.
What's that stand for?
East Coast Polytechnic Institute.
Okay.
Originally, it was Electronic Computer Programmers Institute.
Okay.
Oh, I see.
They started back in the 60s.
I would think you'd be teaching music or something there rather than financial aid.
No, music is my avocation.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. Well, we read all about your story, and man,
Okay.
what a story it is.
You know, so Matt, have you ever heard any of the episodes here on this podcast? Or
Yes, I've listened to a few of them. I listened. Joy, I think
that was a good one
too.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Joel De Los Santos.
Yep.
Boy, is he a talker, huh? He just goes on and on.
Interestingly enough, he and I both have a son named Isaac who's autistic.
Oh, and he's autistic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Message him about that. It's like interesting coincidence here. Doesn't mean anything, of course, but it's just
we can give it meaning, right? We can
we'll
load
make
it up with
True.
meaning.
We'll make it
True.
mean something, yeah, but it doesn't mean anything.
But my second wife, I have my son is Isaac Matheson. She had a son named Matthew Isaac, and we figured, that's a sign from God.
Yeah,
this is meant to be.
Yeah.
Wow. Isn't that something? I think about that too. They'll go, I was thinking about my brother and he called. What are the chances? It's God. And it's like, there are chances.
Yeah,
there are actually, the law of large numbers says there are actual chances. I mean, you can calculate it.
Sure.
Americans don't understand math and science that much, and they're not that interested.
Don't want to,
not interested at all.
Those are really special, warm fuzzy moments. Don't
Plus it takes the magic, takes the romance away too.
It does, yeah.
Like, I always thought when I met my current wife, that
third wife.
my third wife, that it was the finger of my dead mother. It was my mother bringing us together. But it was actually, when you really start thinking about it, it was, proximity more than anything else.
Yeah.
We were in the same town. And through a series of strange coincidences, we got together. And there you go.
So the reason I ask you about the whether you've heard a show or not, one of the things that is just a common thing, and Bob being the lifelong atheist and me being the ex-Christian, one of the things that Bob is struck with over and over again is how hard we Christians, ex-Christians, made our lives so now we know unnecessarily.
Yeah, the pain you had to suffer, all that suffering, and then you think, my gosh, as Cass pointed out to me earlier, you only got one life.
Yep.
And look what happened. My God, I mean,
I've thought so many times I wish I could have made that transition when I was younger, because I was 44 when I accepted the fact that I'm gay, and then shortly thereafter left organized religion. Sometimes I think, if only, but then I think, wait, no. I'm just very grateful that I did make that transition.
Right.
Glass half full.
Because some never do. I mean, I have my family of origin, my siblings, they're still in that fundamentalist way of thinking.
Yeah.
And they don't, we just cannot communicate.
Yeah.
The way we used to. They're just on a totally different bandwidth. And
it's sad.
It's very sad.
So going back to those childhood years, and we read your bio, and you said you were 44 when you came out. Well, how old are you now?
I'm 49.
Okay, so you're born in
68.
'68.
April. Yep.
Okay, so 1968. By the time you're 12 years old, it's 1980, right? Or is that right? Yeah.
Approximately.
Right.
Yeah,
So the world is still not ready for gay people. Am I right?
That's for sure.
In 1980.
True. However, it was 1973 that the American Psychiatric Association stopped classifying homosexuality as a mental disorder.
Okay. So they were.
I never knew that until a few years ago.
Yeah. So steps were being made. Baby steps. The culture was expanding
in the secular world.
Yeah.
Definitely not in the religious world.
No, we're still asking them to join the 21st century, but
right.
Or even the 20th century. That would be nice if they would.
Yeah, just join that one. Yeah.
Exactly.
So in the story, you're sitting out. You're 12 years old. Your neighbor is mowing his lawn, and you're having feelings. And because you're raised in a Christian home, you're like, God dang, what am I feeling, and why am I feeling it? And talk about that.
Yeah, it's such a vivid memory. That's why I use it to start my story, because I felt so completely alone. In that, it's like I knew this was something very strong within me that I felt like I didn't have control over. Of course, what I was taught was, okay, well, I need to give this to God. I need to pray about this. This is sin, and I can, of course, I started masturbating, and I was convinced that if I could just stop doing that.
Yeah.
That I would no longer be attracted to men for some reason.
Yeah.
And I've talked to other guys that, oh yeah, I thought that too, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was so isolated because I just, there was nobody at that time that I felt like I could talk to about this.
So probably none of your family's going to listen to this show, right?
Well, that depends.
Okay.
I'll make that decision whether to share it with them or not when it's all said and done. And I listen to it. I'll decide then.
Okay. But the reason I ask is I want to go back and talk about your childhood upbringing. And you mentioned in the bio that your dad was kind of a, just believe in the Bible and it'll fix all of this. And that
read a Bible verse and there you go.
Right.
You'll be fine.
So, talk about your mom and dad's spirituality.
Well, my dad was very much more kind of fanatical. My mom had always been much more quiet about her faith. But when I was like 8 years old, my dad had a born again experience. Mm-hmm. The way that with his personality that, and I have I mentioned I have a son who's autistic. I would put my dad on the autistic spectrum.
Okay.
Of course, back then they didn't really test for things like that, but I think he's on the spectrum, like kind of Asperger's syndrome. Mm. So he tends, for him, evangelical Christianity became his obsession, mm-hmm. And of course he believed all the end times prophecies. Oh, the world's coming to an end soon. Jesus is coming back, so why bother worrying about the future, mm-hmm. And the only thing he was concerned about was getting as many people to say the sinner's prayer as he possibly could.
What's the sinner's prayer?
You accept Jesus in your heart.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right. Getting people saved.
Okay.
I was the same way. I mean, I didn't care about the future. All I cared about was populating heaven.
Really?
Yeah. Even had T-shirts made, but that's another story. So, your parents, are they, for example, Trump supporters, or where are they on the political spectrum?
Well, my mom passed away in 2007.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay. My dad is still alive. But he's been very poor health. Mm-hmm. He's kind of been declining ever since my mom died.
What'd she die of?
She had colon cancer.
Okay.
Oh my, so sorry.
Yeah.
So they're raising you, and I noticed in the bio too that you used to read the Bible at recess. You were devout. I did the same thing. Right. Not at recess per se, because I didn't really get radical.
Well, it was Catholic school, so I guess it wasn't that weird. But.
Yeah. No, but so it wasn't just external forces telling you to subdue your own sexual orientation. It was you yourself. You internally, because of your relationship with God and your devotion to your faith, you had an internal battle going on.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I couldn't. I rejected that part of myself.
Are you familiar with like dissociative issues with psychology and stuff, where you kind of compartmentalize parts of yourself so that you did,
yeah.
Did you feel like a divided, as opposed to, what is it?
Whole.
Whole or
there's a word for it.
It's not concentric, but it's
it's consolidated or something.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
I just felt very shut down.
Okay.
I was very shy, and that was one reason why I read. It's like reading the Bible kind of saved me from having to try to
socialize
with my because I didn't know how to do that, because it's when you're always hiding a big part of yourself. Mm-hmm. There's always that constant fear. Just the safest thing is just to not disclose, just to be in my own little world. I remember as a senior in high school describing myself as a loner, content in his solitude, which that was the lie I was telling myself. Mm-hmm. It wasn't really true. The reality was I was miserable.
Yeah.
Right.
Very sad and lonely, and I didn't know what to do about it.
There are these phrases that, because the thing is that solitude is a very wonderful and valuable thing. And so I know I value my time alone. I value my solitude, and it's healthy. It's a break from society. It's a break from the rat race. And so,
the judgment.
Yeah. Just kind of pull away and be with yourself and be comfortable in your own skin, and kind of get a respite from all that. So I can see that in the way you phrased it, you could say, yeah, this is my little solitude, and I'm content in my solitude. Mm-hmm. I know another phrase comes up in your bio, and again, here when we frame something with certain descriptors and labels and such, then there's a intent sometimes to project into that a positive or negative or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of skipping ahead here, but you get into a ministry that is kind of pray the gay away type of ministry. And Bob and I were struck by this word, cannibal compulsion.
Yeah, when I heard that, I was like, "What? Wait, what? I hadn't heard that before."
Well, no, I've never heard those two words put together.
Yeah, cannibal.
That's part of the Living Waters.
They actually use that word.
They use that term.
What's that mean?
Yeah, cannibals. Well, basically, cannibals
eating their own kind.
They eat. Well, they eat the part. Like if they want to be smarter, they eat the brain.
Okay.
So,
yes, if you want to.
So they related that to homosexual feelings as you want to consume the aspects of manliness, masculinity that you perceive as lacking in yourself.
It's like if you want to run as fast as the gazelle, you eat the gazelle. You know, it's a pagan. It's a pagan. It's really a pagan notion.
Animalism.
Yeah. It's you consume.
Okay, so the coach of this Living Waters things might say to you, okay, you're having desires to have sex with men. No, that's actually not what you're feeling. What you're feeling is cannibal compulsion. You're wanting to extract from that male something that you admire about him.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Exactly.
Wow.
And there you go. You've explained away your sexual urges.
Well, what about eating Christ as well? You eat the body and blood of Christ, you know.
Well, there's that.
To be like Christ, Christ-like, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
How
That's
weird.
right.
How just fucking weird.
Yeah. you got it.
When you start thinking about it,
but
you know,
it's that, having to come up with a rationalization.
Yeah.
Right.
Why, you feel this way. And, and I bought into it. I mean, for 20 fucking years of my life, I believed that if I just followed all the right steps, prayed all the right prayers, that I would no longer be gay, that I would no longer be attracted to men.
Huh.
And of course, it never worked.
No.
Well, you can't change that.
Yeah. Matt, in your story, as we were reading it, we said, well, I mean, are you gay or are you bi? Because you were married a couple of times and you seem to like women too, So.
Well, and it's funny because it's actually a Christian psychologist actually was the first one who told me this. He said, human sexuality is on a continuum.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
There are some people that are like strictly straight, strictly, gay, but most people are somewhere along the continuum between those two extremes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I describe myself as being 2/3 gay, 1/3 straight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which means I'm twice as attracted to men as I am to women.
Yeah.
Sure.
Doesn't mean I can't function sexually with a woman. Obviously, I did. My 2 wives, who are, by the way, the only women I've ever had sex with.
Yeah.
Obviously had 6 children.
Right.
And this is, most of the gay men that I've met, have been married or have been with women, so most of us are somewhere on that spectrum. I mean, you could say I'm bi, but I think it's more accurate to say I'm gay because I have a clear preference for men.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, that's why I can call myself straight, because I have a very clear preference for women. But, these Kinsey scales and the continuum we're talking about here, I could probably be like 80-20.
Really?
I don't care.
So, the gay people are always talking about like guys who are like bi-curious. It's like,
Oh yeah. If I was in an orgy and there, I'd go all out. I mean, it's a playground, and I got no shame about anything anymore. And this is why I think the word unnatural is so toxic, because it's like you like what you like, and nobody gets hurt. It's legal. It's consensual. Where in the world does somebody get the right or the audacity or the presumption to tell me or anybody else that something that they come by naturally is unnatural? And then you spend your life trying to suppress that. And we talked about the Pray the Gay Away ministry of Living Waters. A lot, like you said, a lot of your friends and yourself marry the gay away.
Marry the gay away?
Well, exactly.
That's a new one.
That's what I thought. I mean, because my first sexual experience was with a man. It was an old. Well, I mentioned this in my story, of course. An older man
from
when
your
I was
church,
in college, at my church.
Oh, wait, that story. Can we touch on that? You finish your point, and then let's go back to Manny, because I want to talk about that.
Well, no, go ahead. What questions do you have?
Well, reading the story, and I probably should let you talk because I've been talking too much, but not only he's 15 years senior, but that's actually kind of common. I see that a lot in gay men relationships, that sometimes age is not really, doesn't seem as relevant to gay men as it does to like heterosexual couples. Am I right?
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems common. I've seen a lot of gay relationships where there's a pretty wide gap, and they're both happy with it and content with it. And, again, it's nobody's business.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, that's not really part of the story as far as his 15 years.
Well,
senior.
I guess my point was that he was my first sexual experience, but my relationship with him was very dysfunctional in other ways. Yeah. He was very manipulative. Of course, it was all a big secret. Nobody knew about this except that we were quote unquote friends.
Yeah.
But that was my first experience, my sexual experience with anybody.
And you were how old?
19, 20.
You were in college then.
Yeah, I was in college. Yeah.
Well, the fact that he was older does play a role, because you could kind of trust him at that point as far as. And the arrangement with you guys was that you were both in church together. He ended up inviting you out to lunch after church. You confessed after quite a while of being friends with him that you had homosexual tendencies.
Right.
And he said, "Oh my gosh, I do too." And you both hated them. You both wanted to suppress them, or at least verbally. Yes, what you communicated to each other. And then he says, "You know what? We should get together every Saturday and fast and pray, and hope maybe this will go away."
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell that story.
And so you agree.
Well, it wasn't like it was like a particular Saturday. Let's do this. And honestly, I can say that what he really communicated over the long term that he wanted to have a relationship with me. Yeah. Long term. Yeah. That's really what he was hoping for.
Yeah. But
so
the setup was.
But it was the setup. Exactly. It's like, let's get together and pray. And then, on a Saturday, and then the Friday before, hey, you want to come over and spend the night? We can get an early start.
I cracked up when I read that. He calls and says, in order to get an early start on this fasting and praying, it would probably be more efficient if you just stayed the night. Right. You get over there. Oh, I forgot my pajamas. Is it okay if I sleep in my underwear? Yeah, that's fine. Oh, do you want to sleep on the couch or with me? Oh, I guess I'll just sleep with you. I mean, this is like, what's this is.
Yeah, you had to know.
I knew what I was doing.
Yeah,
I
did. And it sounded exciting, I'm sure.
But yeah, there's always, it's like, oh, well, and of course, for me, it was like, well, I could put the responsibility on him because he's the older one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's like he did this to me. Of course, I never attacked him like that, but still, it kind of relieved me of some of that moral responsibility.
Yeah.
Sure. But even if you look at Manny, who's the guy we're talking about now, here's an older fella who's been through a lot of crap, 15 years more than you have, right? Mm-hmm. And he's lonely too. He's lonely and he's confused, and he's So you found each other.
Hey, is it okay to use his name?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes, that's fine. He actually passed away.
Oh, okay. We can use his name.
A while back, I got a call from. This was when I was at college at the University of Miami, and I got a call from somebody down there whom I had never met, but this person somehow knew that Manny and I had been close, and so he called to let me know that he had kidney failure, and I don't know if he had AIDS or anything like that.
You better hope not.
Yeah. Well, he didn't.
Actually, I had a conversation with my mom about that one time when she was still alive, and I said, well, Manny and I never actually did anything to put me at risk.
Cool.
So, all right. Because I wasn't, I wasn't ready to do everything.
So when your mom
with them,
when your mom passed, you had already come out to her.
Well, she knew that I had struggled. That at that time, I was still believing a lie.
Yeah.
That I could get help, that I could come. When I first got involved in the Living Waters ministry, when I wrote a letter to my parents, letting them know, I've been struggling with this, but I'm getting help. Of course, my dad's response is, "Oh, Matt's free." He's like, acts as if, I'm all healed and I don't have this problem anymore. So that's the story that's what my mom knew. Mm-hmm. She didn't, she died in 2007. Mm-hmm. accepted and made peace with being gay in 2012.
Okay.
So that's the part she didn't experience.
Yeah.
Well, and even some of your peers in high school were like, "You're gay."
Yeah. Well, that was like earlier. Like I remember that like in 7th, 8th grade.
Yeah.
Catholic school. Yeah, would tease me about it.
But it's funny how people on the outside kind of. I mean, you already knew. You knew, but then when people. When the people tell you.
But is it just kids being bullies or being jerks or the way they're kids? How do they figure that stuff out? Were they just calling your names?
I don't know if they do. I don't know if he actually thought that was true.
Okay. Yeah.
And I don't know why he would think that, but I don't know. I mean, I'm 12 years old. I don't know. I can't begin to fathom what was going on in my head back then.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, I guess let's talk about the two wives and maybe, just unpack, how, what you were feeling and how you were trying to.
Let me set it up. So you got Manny, that's out of the way. And now you're graduated from college, I guess, or.
Right. So, and I came up to this area to go to school at Regent University.
Okay.
So, which is rather ironic, but
well, why is that ironic? Regent is run.
Well, it used to be called CBN University.
Okay,
it's on the same complex as the Christian Broadcasting Network.
Oh, so it's Pat Robertson. It's Pat Robertson.
Correct.
That's his university. Oh boy.
Correct.
Well, yes. Pat Robertson, he's very strange.
So, and this is how I was. At that point in my life, I didn't know what I had no ambition. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't have the courage to go for it.
Which is music?
Yeah, definitely music.
Yeah.
But this older guy in my life who was like a spiritual mentor to me, he actually had been the one who encouraged me to go to the University of Miami. And then when I was done there, he encouraged me to come up here and go to Regent. So I just it's like, okay, no one else is giving me guidance. He was kind of like more of a father to me in that way than my actual father was. Mm-hmm. So I did. I came up here and I took some classes actually in drama at Regent University. And I was told by a very kind professor, it's like, Matt, you'd have a very hard time making it as an actor. I said, that's okay, because that's not what I want to do anyhow. But meanwhile, I started working for a guy who had a recording studio, and I've just stayed here ever since.
Here in Virginia Beach.
Yeah. In Virginia Beach,
right?
Gotcha. This area. I was Portsmouth. I mean, the whole Hampton Roads area. I've been in this area.
Nice, beautiful area.
Since 1990.
And what state were you raised in, though?
In North Carolina, Charlotte area.
And there was a Catholic school, a Lutheran school, and then a public school, or some combination of those.
You stayed with the high church, that's for sure.
Yeah. As a child, I did.
Yeah.
Non-denominational and Vineyard and such since then.
At what point did you start playing in churches, like in the praise and worship?
No, when I was like 14 years old.
Yeah.
Wow. What would you play? What was your instrument?
Primarily piano.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I played some other instruments played clarinet, trumpet.
Wow.
Were you in the marching band?
My first year at the University of Miami, I was in the marching band. I did it for the scholarship.
Yeah.
But they were a bunch of party animals and just
they are band people party.
Not my crowd
nuts.
at all.
They're crazy. Yes, they are.
Well, and I don't know if were you on the traveling team, like where you'd go to other.
Yeah, actually, I was at the Fiesta Bowl in 1987.
Yeah,
my first year in college.
Staying at a hotel.
Yeah,
that's probably where the partying went on.
Yeah. I was just. I'm sure I just kept to myself mostly.
So. Oh, you were still an introvert. I mean, you probably still are, but back then it was severe. I always called it a turtle shell. People can stick their head out and every now and then engage, but.
Yeah.
The thing about my experience with band trips, and I only played in high school, but even in high school, which is it's even going to be more so in college, is that we would change on the bus.
Oh, that's right.
So there was just, co-ed changing. I mean, just down to your underwear, but
still.
Right.
Seeing all your peers and all these girls in their bras and panties, it was kind of fun.
Yeah.
kind of fun for you anyway.
Yeah. So what was the other Christian campus where you went to a water park and you had a girlfriend, and you're just surrounded by men in Speedos, and this was
this was before I went off to college. It was Heritage USA,
Heritage,
which was, Jim and Tammy Baker's creation. Yeah,
you could not stop. I
was immersed in it. I mean, that was yeah.
So Jim and Tammy Baker, I didn't even realize they had a swimming hole or whatever that was.
It's a water park. I don't know what's going on there now, but back then, there was a nice water park. And
Jim Baker didn't learn a damn thing in prison.
Apparently not.
No. Definitely not.
Yeah.
I think there's a dynamic here with your girlfriend and with your wives and all the women in your life. Mm-hmm. And that I want to kind of, I'm asking you because you obviously have a front row seat to it and are intimate with the nuances of these relationships. But a gay man who right up front, and you were open with these women, you told them, I have, homosexual tendencies and whatever.
Well, I'm sure I didn't phrase it that way. I probably said, I'm, attracted to men, but I'm working on it. Going to Living Waters, I know what I need to do to get better. And because my first wife, she, when we were going through divorce, the way she put it was, he told me, he had been attracted to men, but now he was healed. Well, I'm sure I didn't say it quite that way to her, but that's the way she remembered. You were
pursuing healing.
That's the way. Yeah, that's how she remembered it.
Was it what?
Of course, at that point in time, I'd never been with a woman. So for all I knew, that really was going to cure me. You don't know until you try.
You didn't have sex. You didn't have sex with your girlfriend, but you messed around enough to where you said, "Oh, I can." Right. This is that 1/3.
I got aroused sexually. I knew I figured out I could do it.
Well, I guess what I'm getting. Why would she even? In that kind of court process or something, did she have to come up with a reason, like irreconcilable differences and those kind of things? But
right. Well, what she did was I've always been a journaler.
Oh, and she got a hold of your journal.
She started reading and making copies of my journals.
Boy.
So she could use it against you in court.
As her evidence, to say, oh, this is why. But then, but she also had to admit to the fact that, but he did tell you before you, like when we first met. Yeah. I told her about this.
Now, is this in an attempt to get more alimony or something?
It's funny you asked that because when it was all said, there was no fault. In fact, the actual commissioner's report said that she deserted the marriage without just cause or provocation. Mm-hmm. So I asked my attorney when it was all said and done, it's like, do you think I could have, been any worse off if I had been at fault? And he said no. Because in a case like that, it has to do with the children. Yeah. She had been a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah. You're the breadwinner.
And so the alimony that was awarded to her was rehabilitated for 7 years. Because the reason was, 7 years from now, the kids are old enough, you don't have to worry about childcare anymore. You can go back to work. Yeah. So that's why she got alimony. Yeah. And of course, child support is, that's just it's automatic. But yeah,
it doesn't seem like you had any problem with that.
With what?
With what?
With child support and
money.
What have you? Yeah.
Oh, well, I guess I left that part out of my story. It was a huge struggle. I was pretty destitute. Oh, fortunately, one thing that I learned from my mom, she was very frugal. Mm-hmm. She had to be. Support. They had 5 kids, and she and my dad never made a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So I learned how to be very frugal, grocery shopping. So that's kind of just like always been a way of life for me. Mm-hmm. Like with my kids, I cook for them. I very rarely take my kids out to eat because I just can't afford it. I'm much better off now because my older kids are all 18 or older, so I only pay child support for the younger 2 now. So life is much different now. But there was that span of time, 10 years, it was pretty rough.
Yeah. So this element of the women in your life, you were married 10 years and then divorced the first time?
First one, we'll see. We got married in 93. We were separated in 2002. Okay. And it was full 3 years before the divorce was finalized, but
so a little longer than 10, but yeah, I get you.
And
that's heartbreaking no matter what.
Yeah, not being able to go home to my kids at night. Yeah, that was and I remember walking around. I was working at CBN at the time. working nights, and I remember just walking around the campus at night, just yelling. It's like, to God, how could you let this happen to me?
Yeah. That is hard, man. I mean, you've had a hard life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then that marriage dissolves, and you have 4 kids from that marriage. And then there's a space of time, and then you remarry.
Right.
Again, and you're still
try again.
and you're still part of the Christian faith at this time, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. And this woman, that the second wife, then the second woman you marry is sure she can cure you. Is that right? Yeah.
Right.
Talk about that.
Right. Yeah. She, when I first told her about being attracted to men, she didn't tell me this till later. Her initial response was she went home and told her 17-year-old daughter, she had an older daughter that she had a conversation with her and basically told her, well, I think Matt and I are going to be like Will and Grace. But then I guess she rethought it, and then she decided, she would still give it a go. But I remember a conversation several months later after she and I had become sexually active, and she kind of wanted to know if I was still feeling these things towards men. And I told her, yes, I am. But she always had that. She always, thought that she could cure me. The interesting thing about that relationship is that she had an older brother who had passed away, who had died from AIDS back in the 80s, but he was the one person in her family that she felt really loved her, and he was openly gay. And so in her mind, she could, even though she was a Christian, in her mind, she could never, think of him as being, evil person. So she's the one person in my life that ever said to me, Matt, maybe you just need to accept this about yourself, that it's okay that you're gay.
Wow.
What's that? What's that feeling when the first time you entertain the notion this might be the real
I was nowhere near ready at that point in time. I mean, we were separating at that time, and I felt like I was very isolated, and so I've been told I need more fellowship with men, and I need to spend more time, just good, positive, interaction with men.
Right. Fixing carburetors.
That's what I really needed. Yeah.
Going fishing. Yes.
So I was like, I was going to try. That's what I was going to do. It was a full 3 years later that I felt like I had tried that. As long I tried everything.
Yeah. I was going to say,
someone recommended a book. I would read the book. I would follow there's this book I mentioned in my story, this guy named Medinger, I think, Growth into Manhood. Right. It's a really good book, and it's funny because it actually helped me feel more comfortable among other men.
Yeah.
But it didn't change the fact that I really wanted to have sex with a man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's like I tried everything. I really felt like I did my best. I did my due diligence, in 2012, I was just at the point where, I think maybe I just need to try something different.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, definitely no rock left unturned. I mean, and seriously, it was, and that in itself is earnest. Like, I want to please God. I want to be true. I want to be righteous. I want to be whole.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
And you just kick what Paul called kicking against the goads. You're just fighting what's really true about yourself.
Right.
I think I've heard a couple of times in the way that you phrase things and really almost the way that you see things. There's been a couple of times where, and it was in the story as well, but instead of, we started off the show saying, glass half empty, glass half full, and then like blaming your second wife or even your first wife or whatever, and then you make a mental transition and say, you know what, that's not helpful. It's toxic for the relationship. It really, everybody was doing the best they could with what they had, and I kind of need to take ownership of my contribution to this problem.
Right.
And, is that something that you have worked to get to? It's a place of maturity.
Yeah, it's growth. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I am an introvert, and I do a lot of journaling, and I've learned things about myself. And also, I've in coming out of Christianity, organized religion, I've read a lot of, books, spiritual teachers, like Eckhart Tolle.
Oh yeah.
One I really like.
Me too.
And Marianne Williamson, learning, and of course, the whole concept of meditation. Sam Harris is the guy I listen to a lot, and I love his book, Waking Up, Spirituality Without Religion.
Do you meditate?
I'd like to get better at it. I'm not I don't do formal meditation, but there'll be times throughout the day where I'll just adopt a mantra that I like. Like recently, I've been kind of very anxious about a potential relationship that I have to kind of wait to find out how it's going to develop. Yeah. And so I'm finding myself at work, and of course, we have this thing called the default mode, where our brains, it's like if you're doing something that doesn't occupy all of your conscious attention, you kind of fall into this default mode. Yeah. And so I was finding I'm finding this default mode when I'm always thinking about this guy, and it's like, ooh, when am I going to talk to him again? And I adopted this little mantra. It's like, all in good time. And I made it a habit just to start thinking, it's like all in good time, and then refocus on what I'm doing.
Yeah. Sure.
And it really helps, because what I've learned is that a lot of people think, oh, I can't, I try to meditate and I'm just not good at it. Well, there's little things like that you can do, that you can start, that will over time really change the way your mind operates and the way you react to the things you're thinking and feeling. Yeah. And so I've done a lot of that.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I'm talking about, that I can hear it. I can read it in your story. I can hear it in your perspective, in that you have worked on your own mindfulness, your own emotional health. Right. There's kind of what I was referring to earlier about, you've learned that it's not valuable or helpful to shift the blame. Right. And here's an observation about just fundamentalism wherever it shows up. There are fundamentalist Buddhists. You wouldn't think there would be.
Yeah, you're right.
There's a fundamentalist. Well, there's fundamentalist Dallas Cowboy fans.
Sure.
You just take it too far. And one of the ways that I think probably, especially with Eckhart Tolle and Marianne Williamson and the likes, that you've kind of adopted some of they will tell you, and the good ones will tell you, don't shame yourself for how good or bad or how much or how often or how long or short you meditate. That's missing the point. Right. Yeah. So you do you, and you can, even if you just smorgasbord it, or even if you just adapt one principle out of 100 and say, I'm going to add that to my life, the good gurus will say, good on you.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole concept of adopting a mantra, it doesn't have to be some Vedic kind of, it doesn't have to be some strange thing. You can say love, or you can say doorknob, or whatever you want, Right. And, all in good time is, that's
all in good times.
That's very good. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it settles the body. It brings you into
it's supposed to focus your mind.
Back into the moment.
Of course, take a deep breath as I'm saying that.
Sure.
Yeah. Sure.
Well, that's disattachment to outcome. Is like, well, I'll be happy when I'm with that guy.
Right. You don't want that.
And then you're pulled out of the moment, and and so all in due time. As a very impatient person, like one of probably my chief vice, or my chief flaw, is impatience. And a phrase like "all in Mine good too. Time,"
mine too,
yeah, good.
So you get out of your second marriage. You're single. You're still a Christian. I don't know. Take us for from there.
Yeah. So I was attending this weekly men's group because I had been told by one of the guys involved with the Living Waters ministry. I'd been just meeting with him sporadically, and he told me, it's like, Matt, I'm not attracted to men anymore, at all. And I said, well, how did that come about? Because
how did you do that?
What's the secret? Because I've been looking for it.
I'm part of this men's group, and they love on me and give me good affection and everything. And it's like, okay, well, sign me up for that.
Yeah.
So I started going to this men's group, and we were going through these Wild at Heart. What's that guy's name? John Eldredge.
Yeah, John
Eldredge's books. Yeah. We were going through that book and talking about everything. And I thought, this is good. This is, and it was good. I mean, there were good things that came out of that, associating with those guys and going into that weekly meeting, So I did that I think I started at the end of 2009, so good, 2 full years, into, early summer of 2012. But still, there was still something missing, It's like, and I thought, what is it? And so in June, and at that point, my son was living with me, going to school. But during the summer break, he would spend 3 weeks with his mom. Mm-hmm. And that year, 2012, I just decided, I think I'd like to try to meet somebody new, and I want it to be a man. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was not at that point thinking I'm looking for a romantic sexual relationship with a man, just that I'd like to meet a man, Mm-hmm. So I put an ad in Craigslist in the strictly platonic section describing what I was looking for. And of course I wrote my story, and of course, in the man for man section, even strictly platonic, you're most likely gonna connect with other gay men, and I did. And this one guy, met him and liked him, and at that point the possibility entered my mind of what would it be like to be in a romantic relationship with a man. Mm-hmm. Because my relationship with Manny, I never really put in that category. That was just something else. That was just
a tryst.
Tryst, mentorship, a learning experience. But
how would that be? And once I started let myself think that way, mm-hmm. It was just like waking up from a nightmare.
Yep.
Wow. Isn't that?
It was like, how could I have not seen that this was what I needed to do all along?
Just giving yourself permission.
Yeah. Exactly. And just started meeting guys different ways, put, on Match.com,
Yeah.
The occasional Craigslist ad and, things like that. And, just started dating men and, having sex with men. And, I knew at that point there was no turning back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But the first thing to go was your, your admission and your acceptance of your sexual orientation, but you still were a Christian. Mm-hmm. So when did that?
So you stayed Christian then throughout this?
Well, it wasn't long.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, June 2012 was when I accepted being gay and started dating men. It was by the end of the year that I reached the point. And part of this whole story that I didn't mention before, that I had an old friend who we had gone to church to. Actually, he was the recording guy, had the recording studio that I worked for when I first moved to the area.
Yeah.
We both went to the same church, the Vineyard church back then. Mm-hmm. Well, we had reconnected in 2010. He had found me on Facebook. By that point, he had already deconverted. He was, apostate and, very just like, and I was like, I was thinking like, I'm going to win him back, I'm going to win him back to the faith, because I was still very, at that point, I remember at that point, I was like really into like God as lover, wants to have this intimate relationship with you and, that sort of thing. So we started talking, and he never pressured me at all, but he just asked a lot of really good questions that made me think. He asked me, Matt, what do you think of the idea that when I die, I'll be, suffering forever in hell because I choose not to believe, in Jesus as my savior, And I just had to say, that's a good question. I'll have to think about that.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting, he's asking you because he knows that if you have to look into that darkness, it's going to be a cognitive dissonance that might,
Yeah. And at the same time, you guys might remember Rob Bell.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Love Wins.
Yeah.
Which his whole emphasis or the reasons for writing that book was that they had an art show at their church. One of the works of art was had a quote by Gandhi, and somebody put a Post-it note on that saying, reality check, Gandhi is in hell.
Oh, jeez.
And so Rob Bell wrote this whole book. Well, what does the Bible really say about hell? What does it really say about salvation? And my biggest takeaway from that book was there is no consistent definition of salvation in the New Testament.
Totally. And you'd think that
what the hell?
Yeah.
Like if this was supposed to keep me from eternal torment, you'd think it'd be a little more clear.
Yeah. That's it in a nutshell, man. That's one of the greatest arguments against it. It's like you'd think you could. Christopher Hitchens says that it took him, thousands of years before he, even if you believe the Christian narrative of a young earth, where was God all that time? And then when he did finally try to, communicate to us as a species, it was cryptic. It was, hidden. And it's like, what the fuck? Instead of saying life is happening exactly as it would if there were no God, we say, well, there's a God, but he's just mysterious, or seek and find, and hide and seek.
Exactly.
Well, going back to these men ministries, I know that I actually did a Wild at Heart retreat, where I had a whole bunch of men at a cabin in the woods, and we went through the exercises in the book.
Sounds like fun.
Well, here's the thing about my father died when I was 17, and I don't know, we haven't really talked much about how your relationship with your dad, but a lot of times, especially the pray the gay away type Christians, they'll come and say, well, you've just got a manhole in your heart, or you've got a father hole in your heart. And
exactly.
And the truth, here's the thing is there's some truth to that. I ended up as a, college student and for the rest of my life, even to this day, I am attracted, not sexually, but I am drawn to men, older men who will take an interest in me.
Sure.
I miss my dad, goddammit,
Sure.
And so I don't have any apologies for that. It's not a dysfunctional relationship, but I do have a manhole. Like I have a father hole. I'm not desperate to try to fill it. I mean, I'm good to go. I'm a grown man now, et cetera. But I just really, I really connect with older men. And so those men ministries and things, it's not like, you went there to try to help remove this sinful nature or this tendency that you had, but you came away with stuff, right?
Sure. I mean, it made me feel more comfortable relating to men, but I tell you the thing that made me the most comfortable relating to other men was when I accepted myself as being gay.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter. Like at work, I'm still not like out to people at work, 'cause I just don't discuss my personal life with people at work.
Yeah.
But I could tell a difference just in the way I relate to other men in general. After it's like, I'm no longer afraid that this thing is going to come out.
Yeah.
That they're going to somehow figure out that I'm gay. It's like, 'cause now it's like, it doesn't matter.
Sure.
So, and I felt, because I remember writing this in my journal at the time, it's like, I always felt, to me, the idea of just giving in, to being gay, I thought would have felt like losing my manhood, like becoming less of a man. But it did just the opposite. It made me feel like more of a man, more whole as a man.
Yeah.
Well,
how much of it is cultural, do you think, Matt? Since the culture is changing, and maybe not in the Christian circles, but certainly in secular circles,
Everywhere else.
Yeah, things are changing. So you think was that a help, or?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I never watched Brokeback Mountain until
you got to rent that.
Until after I started. Yeah, it's like, okay, I can watch this now. I'm not afraid to watch this now. I mean, it's such a sad story, but it made me grateful to be living when I'm living now. Yeah. I mean, just the fact that now it's same-sex marriage is legal throughout the United States. I was surprised how quickly that actually came about.
Or it seems it was quick, but remember.
I mean, obviously
it goes back to the 50s.
Perspective, actually. I guess from when I 2012, when I really cared, I was like, oh, well, I might want to marry a man. From that point on, it didn't take long. But no, it was definitely a long battle.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's getting to your question, Bob, about culture. As a culture that is completely uneducated when it comes to like gayness, in that, because it's been, thanks to religions, it's been, cast as a psychopathy and a syndrome and, everything.
Sinful, all that stuff.
Yeah, just a broken condition and perverted. I think that's a big piece of it.
Oh, well, certainly, yeah.
And in that, it's hard for people who've been steeping in Christianity, who views this act, any men or lesbians or whatever, as depraved and just reprobate. That even just hearing you say, Matt, like, well, I don't talk about my personal life at work. Well, I don't either. Like, nobody in my office knows or cares whether I'm straight or gay because it's irrelevant. You know?
Right.
So there's that. But then the other thing is that when you said, I am more comfortable, and I know that part of it is like you finally get to you've lived a disingenuine life. And so part of your wholeness of feeling like I'm not only more comfortable being a man, I'm more comfortable being Matt. And so that when you show up to a room, you're not dissociated, you're not compartmentalized.
Right.
And you're people are getting the whole you now when they engage with you.
Right.
But this notion of I can be around men now, and I'm more comfortable being around men. And I'm just going to be honest here, as a guy, Christian guy, steeped in this stuff all my life, it just occurred to me, this weirdness of, you are not attracted to every man you walk up to.
Yeah, I would think so. Just like I'm not attracted to every girl.
But I'm just saying that's kind of a leap for people like me, or people steeped in Christianity all their life, is that it's easy to just assume or project onto this whole demographic, gay men, that whenever they're in a room full of men,
they want me.
They want everybody.
Yeah, no.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
It is weird. It's
weird
it is. Thinking, yeah.
It is. I think that's, I know that I struggle with stereotyping because I told myself for years, it's like, guys that I could tell were gay or thought were gay. It's like, well, I'm not really attracted to them. I'm attracted to masculine men. So maybe I'm not really gay if I'm not attracted to other gay men,
Yeah, sure.
But now I know that there are plenty of men. I mean, the potential relationship that I was talking about earlier. I mean, this is a guy that I would never have suspected. In fact, he's very much like me. He was married and for a long time and has kids, and So what I've learned is that my stereotypes that I had are not real. They're not, and I think as more and more gay men come out, the world begin to see. It's like we're all different. Yeah, there is no one stereotypical gay men.
Yeah.
Gay man.
It's funny you mentioned that too, Matt. We have a friend. Well, both Cass and I have a friend, mutual friend who's gay, and he strikes me as such a lonely guy because he's very smart, very well versed in everything, certainly in religion as well. No longer Christian in the typical way. And he, like you, would go online or whatever, go put an ad in, and all he wants is a little intimacy, companionship, and some intimacy, but not necessarily sexual too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But all that seems to come up is let's have sex,
Yeah.
And he's like, he gets, I don't know, he's not happy with that. He would sooner have just some, somebody to be with, somebody to hang with and love. And I wonder if you have that same experience. Is everybody out for sex? that you deal with?
Well, there's definitely
there's got to be some.
There are guys out there that are looking for that, and it's different on different sites. I mean, if you're on a site like Match.com, it's like a dating site. You're more likely to meet guys who are willing to have a conversation, to have an actual date. They're not just looking for sex. There are plenty of sites out there that are designed for hooking up.
Yeah,
and that's what they're designed for. So if that's what if you're on those sites, and I'm not saying I'm not, but because in my mind, it's like because I no longer believe that there's a God out there who's guiding my life, who's going to bring the right person into my life at the right time. I feel like I need to give myself as many opportunities as possible.
Yeah, it's a numbers game.
To meet the right guy, you know.
Is, yeah.
And honestly, I'll tell you this: my first boyfriend, he was a very, very sweet guy. Really enjoyed being with him. We met on a hookup, you know, through a hookup site, you know. So there's no, I guess you just have to, you have to be, I mean, open to just like meeting people and seeing what they're really like. I mean, if someone just is just going out, they just want sex and nothing else, and that, you know, does tend to turn me off.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that I've totally lost, you know, I used to be so judgmental. Of course, I was judging myself all the time.
Yep.
So I've learned, you know, coming out and leaving religion behind, it's like, you know, I don't need to judge anybody. You know, I mean, so many guys are so big on like, well, monogamy. We have to have monogamy. It's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I want to just have a strictly monogamous relationship. But I don't think that's a moral imperative.
No.
You know, I think if a couple decides they want to have an open relationship, or even have a relationship of three people, you know, it's like there's nothing wrong with that, you know, morally.
Yeah.
You know, it's just what works for you. I think the important thing is just to be honest and transparent. Be who you are. If you can be who you are with somebody and feel like they, you know, bring something good into your life, that's the main thing.
Yeah. And going back to the stereotype thing you both were talking about, I think of this, and one of them is that if a man is feminine, then he's gay, and if he's masculine, then he's not. And it's, you know, that's an obvious one.
What does that even mean, though?
Well,
like feminine, you know, you're sensitive to things, or you're kind to people?
You talk or act or think or, like a girl.
Well, I don't know what that, well, I guess I'm feminine then.
No, you're not.
Well, I am. I mean.
Well, you're sensitive.
Yeah.
I guess I'm talking about mostly the lisp, or, you know, that whole
you're
stereotype.
Talking about
the way you talk.
Yeah.
Oh,
well.
Not a lisp, but, you know, just a girly talk. And I, even as I'm saying this, it sounds like stupid, but
yeah. Well, but I understand.
I'm just saying I'm pointing out what's there.
No, I think you're pointing out the way some people behave. They think, you know, if you're flouncing about or whatever it is, you're, you know, well, clearly you're gay.
Yeah, and it's not the case.
No, of course not.
So I will say this, that I have, now that more and more people are coming out and being honest, because it's safe to do so, for one thing, is that I'm finding and noticing a lot of men who are completely masculine, you know, that historically I would have never suspected. And you just take Anderson Cooper, for example. I just would have never guessed. That's just what I'm saying. That's the point I'm saying. And what I hear you saying, Matt, is that you're attracted to masculine men.
Right.
Yeah. Which doesn't make you less gay. It makes you more gay.
Does it? Yeah. Okay.
That is correct.
Right?
Absolutely correct.
Yeah. Wow. So, and then when it comes to, I don't know if you have any, we haven't talked about this, but when it comes to, you know, the gender spectrum, as far as
Yeah,
you don't have any thoughts of like, I'm kind of a woman inside a man's body or anything?
No, I never have.
Yeah.
And so I have to give the same kind of grace, I guess, to people, you know, because I don't understand that, like, wanting to be the opposite gender, you know, but I have a friend whose oldest child, born female and transitioned to being male. So I've never met, you know, this child of his, but just knowing that, you know, and you know, to me, you know, the whole, the bathroom bill and North Carolina, it's like, okay, so now my friend's son, I mean, he looks like a man, you know, he's supposed to use, you know, the girl's bathroom because his birth certificate says he was, you know, born female. You know, I mean, I have to admit, I'm not, you know, totally comfortable with the whole idea of transgender and everything, but I have to extend the same grace that I would hope that straight people would extend me.
Yes.
You don't understand. It's like, if someone would go to all this trouble, you know, to change their gender, then there's got to be some underlying motivating factor there that they have no control over, just like I can't control the fact that I'm more attracted to men than women.
So just to go back a little bit, I wrote a note here that the guy who you met at church, and he told you all about these men groups and stuff, and he said, I no longer am attracted to men. I've been purged of that sin nature, which completely lit you up, because it's like, oh my gosh, I've tried everything. Tell me your secret. And so you got involved in stuff. Yeah. Do you know whatever happened to him? Like, did it stick?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. I haven't really.
Do you know anybody who prayed it away and it's stuck?
No.
See, I don't either.
For sure. Yeah. Not for sure.
That's crazy.
And the last time I ever went to that men's group, at that point I had not only accepted, being gay, but I also had begun to identify as being agnostic.
Yeah.
The last time I went to this, I told him one night, it's like, yeah, you guys just need to know a couple of things about me, and laid it out there, and never heard from any of them again.
Yeah, but they sat there with complete envy, I bet, though.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
Well, there was one guy in the group who was also he went through Living Waters. He was trying very hard not to be gay. He was also very fundamentalist in his beliefs, and I tell you, he was one of the most miserable people I've ever known in my life.
Yeah. Wow.
And and he actually, it's funny because he actually didn't happen to be there the night that I came out to these guys, but I'm sure they gave him the news the next time they were together.
Yeah, Matt, I have a question about your kids. What about your kids? Usually millennials or whatever are very, they're accepting of gays. And how do they react?
My older children, my older four, very much part of the fundamentalist, evangelical Christian world. And so, I told all of my kids about a year after I made peace with it myself, I told them, and my older kids, they weren't shocked by it because their mom had already told them. It's like, oh, your dad's gay. That's why we divorced it. And so they weren't shocked by it, but I just wanted them to let them know, hey, I've accepted and made peace with this, and they didn't say a word. Do
you have a relationship with them?
I needed to help to tell them. Yeah, sure. I do sort of, and actually the kind of ironic part of it, my second oldest daughter, she got married last year, and her mother-in-law is married to a woman.
Mm. Oh, okay.
So she's now, and she and I haven't specifically talked about this, but I know that obviously her worldview has been expanded in that department. So I'm able to, kind of like when we were visiting with them recently, I mentioned, potential dating partner, and, she's okay with it now.
Yeah. A little more open-minded about it.
Yeah. Or my other two older daughters, my son is autistic. I mean, he could care less. Couldn't care less.
So what's the age range of your first four children?
And the oldest is 23. The youngest just turned 18.
And you have a good rapport relationship with them, right?
It's okay. I mean, it's been very strained just because their mother, she just was so hostile towards me. So that really affected my relationship with them.
Yeah.
My younger two with my second wife, has been much better.
How old are they?
Like I said, she was the one who initially encouraged me to accept being gay. And so so
her brother was gay.
Those two girls, my two youngest daughters, are very fine. Or they're totally fine with it.
Yeah. And they're how old?
They're 10 and 11.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think as your children, grow older too, your first families, I mean, they'll accept you.
Well, they'll realize.
I'd like to think
they'll realize that they got a prejudice or twisted perspective of him from mom.
I hope. What really kind of hurts me the most is that with my siblings. My father. We were talking about my father. At this point, just his ability to communicate verbally is very limited.
Yeah.
All of my siblings are older. Well, I had a younger sibling who actually passed away, but my siblings, they're all older and they're still very much in this fundamentalist mindset. And I told them in a letter about the same time I told my kids verbally, that I accepted being gay. And we never talked about it at all. I said, if you want to talk about it, that's great. If you don't, I'm fine with that too. Just recently, like 4 years later, I finally had a conversation with my oldest sister and her husband about it. And, my sister's saying, Matt, you know the truth. The truth is in you. And I said, the truth is, I've never been more happy and at peace with myself since I accepted my orientation.
I've said it many times on
the
show.
They just can't accept that. And my brother-in-law say, well, you're responsible for what you're teaching your children. You're teaching them a lie. It's like, no, actually what I was doing before
God damn it.
was the lie.
They're teaching their kids a lie.
Right. And that hurts me so much because it's like they cannot bring themselves to just even consider a different point of view.
Yeah.
And even if you study the Bible, I mean, I mentioned Justin Lee in my story.
Yeah.
He started the Gay Christian Alliance. As far as I know, he's still, a committed Christian.
Yeah.
But he, through his very honest study of Scripture, came to the conclusion that no, you don't have to interpret Scripture as condemning, same-sex intimate relations.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've heard a lot about just the gay people who were Christian and fighting the gay, and then accepted it, and then found congregations that are accepting.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
not even just of like, all right, we accept that you're gay, but you have to be celibate. There's that step.
Right.
And then
that reminds me, you guys had a conversation with what was his name? I think I remember was that you were talking about like among Catholics that majority of Catholics actually are in favor of same-sex marriage, even though their religion tells them to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we had those two men on that wrote the book together.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. He just said that on paper, these denominations, in Catholicism, they sign the line to this statement of faith, but
but they don't really buy it.
Especially with contraception. They're anti-contraception, but 85% of Catholics use contraception.
Use contraception, sure. Yeah.
Right. And I just love that podcast because that really helped me because, I've been influenced by people like Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins, who are just, kind of militant. It's like, oh, religion is really bad. We have to just talk people out of it. But that podcast made me realize it's like, that's not really the best approach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You just identify the way people are, stepping away from fundamental, religious beliefs and encourage that.
Yeah.
So at this point then, Matt, there's no heaven, there's no hell. The world is chaos. How do you traverse that? How do you navigate that?
That's a great question. It's a great adventure. As Stephen Curtis Chapman said so. But it's a very different kind of adventure now.
Yeah.
Of course, the latest song that I recorded, I actually wrote this song a few years ago. It's called Beauty and Uncertainty, which it actually came from like a Buddhist teaching on being comfortable with uncertainty. I don't know how to really explain it, but I just have to say that I just feel so much more alive and joyful about my life. I try not to think too much about death because, to me, it's a pretty just to think that, okay, well, probably when you die, that's it. There is no more conscious reality. Of course, no one really knows. And even a guy like Sam Harris says, I'm an agnostic on that topic.
Sure.
It's like, but that's the very real reality is that,
sure.
When you stop breathing, that's it. There's no more existence for you at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I always just bring myself to, well, but that's not, I'm in the moment right now where I am alive.
Well, you're not in denial about that like most Christians are. You just don't want to dwell on it.
And I think, it has something to do with being brought up with that belief because a really good friend of mine who has the transgender, child, he didn't grow up in religion at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so for him, the idea of, when you die, that's it. It doesn't bother him at all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's still, I struggle with it. Sometimes I lay awake at night and thinking, there's going to become a moment when my life is over and that's it. And, you know, I don't like that thought.
Well, there's those personal concerns like that. And then there's people who lost a child or lost a parent or whatever. And they've been counting on seeing that person again.
Yeah,
and you take that away from them, that's really hard.
Right. Yeah. I dated a guy last year for a little bit who was still a committed Christian, went to church, and, you know, we talked a lot about it. Try to get to the bottom, because I told him where I was, like, I'm an apostate, you know, I don't believe in stuff anymore. And for him, it came down to that. He's like, I cannot bear the thought of never seeing my mother and my husband. He had been married to a guy who passed away from lung cancer. I just can't bear the thought of never seeing them again.
That's hard.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your music. You mentioned this song that you've written. Now, I'd like to feature some of your music as a part of this episode.
I have a channel on YouTube.
Okay.
People just like search for Matt Vollmer. Just make sure you put 2 L's. You know, I put some lyric videos on there.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. You sent me one of those. And like you said, this is your side. You have a job, but this is one of your passions, and you're a singer-songwriter.
Right.
Yeah. We've got to talk CCM for a second, right? Just for the fun of it. Like,
Okay.
what were some of the groups or artists that you listened to? I mean, were you raised like only listen to Christian music, or
Is that what that means? CCM, Christian music?
contemporary?
Contemporary Christian music. Okay.
Yeah. Well, mostly. I mean, I remember listening to like the Carpenters and Barry Manilow and like records that my sisters had. You know.
Well, you know, before you go on, I want to insert one more stereotype, and that is that homosexuals, and is that a bad word these days?
Gay, homosexual. I don't know.
It doesn't bother me.
I'm not asking you.
Oh, okay, right. I don't know.
It's not a bad word?
It doesn't bother me.
It doesn't bother you. Okay, so anyway.
I think it's a little unfortunate that the word gay is what we have to use.
Yeah.
But I don't, but it's like, okay, everybody knows what that means.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
You know, and it's easier to say than homosexual, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that homosexual has the connotations of like back when it was a pathology.
Yeah, probably.
You know.
Yeah.
And so
it probably is.
Yeah.
I think gay is probably the best word.
Okay. How about same-sex attraction? That was the Christian way of saying it.
No, don't do that.
Oh, okay.
That's a bad one. Okay.
That's like,
so anyway,
that's something you're trying to overcome.
All right. So gay people typically creatives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're in the arts, they're in drama, they're in music, they're in dance. Is that how rude of that is it for me to have that stereotype?
I mean, I don't think it's rude. I think with any stereotype, you know, it's not always going to be the case.
It's just broad brushing. You know?
It's not always the case, but I do think it's probably, there probably is a higher percentage of creative people, you know, who are.
And it's almost just like that, macho guys like football or something. I don't know.
Right.
Well, and where I'm going with that, and kind of getting back to like gay churches that accept gays, is that I think that it's that when gay people get honest about their gayness and yet don't want to leave their faith. You know, I mean, I think the reason that we have tons of gay churches now, is that's like kind of like your friend that you just dated recently that was like, hey, I've got to see my grandma again. I can't give that up. I think the things that church provide as far as community and songs and kind of goosebumps. I mean, like, you know, just and feeling connected to a God who maybe your whole life felt that you disappointed, and now you have adopted a new belief that he accepts you and loves you, and that feels good. And and then I'm just saying that I can see where a lot of gay people are. It's not necessarily. I guess you can't assume that when they get honest about their sexual orientation, it's not necessarily true that they're going to just automatically give up their faith. Which, even though some would say their faith condemns it, you know, but they find a way to stay in, like your Justin Lee guy.
They do. And I have a hard time. I mean, since that wasn't my experience, I have a hard time relating to that. I mean, one thing when I'm looking at someone, you know, I'm always like, if it says on their profile, they're not religious, like, oh, that's good.
I get you.
I'd rather see that than someone who is, you know, religious.
Or it's complicated.
So, and I think, you know, for me, you know, we talked about how my questioning started with the Love Wins book and reconnecting with my old friend. The place it ended was in 2012, after, accepting myself as being gay. I was reading a lot of different books that I would never have read before. One of them was The God Delusion.
Oh, wow. Sure.
I listened to the audiobook, him and his wife, Lala, read the book, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Mm-hmm.
And that book, and it wasn't like I was already at that point, where that book just convinced me that I could no longer hold on to the idea of the Bible being the Word of God. Mm-hmm. He just tore, and it's, he did it in a very balanced way. He said, the Bible is an important book. It's like, we need to know about these things that are in the Bible. It's part of our culture, part of our history. We need to know these things. Yeah. But to see this as a book that is the basis for truth and doctrine is ridiculous.
Right.
And so when I finished that book, that's when I thought, okay, because for me, Christianity had always been a religion based on the Bible, Mm-hmm. And when that was gone as an authoritative source of truth, I thought, okay, well, I'm not a Christian anymore.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It was as simple as that in my mind, and some people, it's like, well, I'm still a Christian. I still believe in the teachings of Jesus and everything. I say, well, that's great teachings, but you don't need that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. You don't need that. Just let go. Let it go.
Well, and this is the irony we were talking about earlier, is that when you were kind of in a discussion with your sister and her husband about, well, you're teaching your kids or whatever. And the irony that comes up a lot are things that Jesus said that now we believe are true, but in a complete opposite way. And one of them is, the truth will set you free.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it will.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does.
Yes, it does.
The actual truth.
Yeah.
And I love, it makes me think of like C.S. Lewis. I loved reading his books and everything. Yeah. And, but I love, one of his quotes I just still love is he talks about experience. He said, experience is never going to lead you wrong. You can take any number of wrong terms, but when you go back to your own experience, then you're always going to find the end of that whole quote is, the universe rings true wherever it is fairly tested. And it's so true. But when you're stuck in that fundamentalist mindset of everything has to be squared with what the Bible says, you're not free to trust your own experience.
Right. Well, and that's that phrase, live by sight and not by faith. Right. Is what we flip it on its head, because here you are looking at an experience that you just had, and it's telling you a certain truth, and you have to suppress that and say, nope, that is not true. This belief is true. Don't bother me with the facts of what just happened.
Right.
And that's a tension, and that's not freedom.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No. Well, it's so good that you're out and you're proud and you're happy, and this is a good thing, man.
What do you do for fun, man? Oh wait, I want to go back and finish it. Just name a couple of Christian music artists that you listen to, or do you ever get one out nowadays?
Well, I still love Amy Grant.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, sure.
And Jars of Clay was one of my favorite groups. Michael W. Smith.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When I was younger, the Imperials.
Yeah, Russ Taff Imperials.
Russ Taff, yeah. Sarah Groves, I really loved her music.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I remember all of those. I had all of those. In fact, the church that I went to here in Nashville in the 90s was Amy Grant's church and Michael W. Smith's church, and they would occasionally lead worship at this church, and this is right at the height of their. Yeah, they're filling stadiums at this point of their career.
Sure, right.
And the because of who they are, and the church only seats 1,000 or whatever, they would never announce it. You'd never know who was going to lead worship on any given Sunday. And they would only lead like once every 6 weeks or something. But I got to back up Michael W. Smith once. And
did you really?
Yeah.
Cool.
And well, DC Talk, and that was a whole different story. But anyway, this was a world, and I ended up, I worked for Star Song for a while. I was the buyer of a Christian bookstore in Oklahoma.
Wow.
As a kid, I used to read the liner notes and even LPs, you know, like, and I got to know all the musicians. I mean, in my head, not personally.
Right.
Yeah.
But I would recognize the drummer, the bass player, the guitarist. Oh, he played on that. You know, I just, you know, dove into it. And I had also forbade myself from listening to secular music.
Really?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh God.
So at one point I had over, 1,000 CDs in my garage, and I just gave them away, you know, just because, I mean, Christian CD. Yeah. Well, for one thing, there is no such thing as used CD stores anymore, almost. But when there was, they wouldn't buy the Christian stuff. Oh. You know, nobody.
Yeah.
You know,
I took all mine to the thrift store.
Yeah, just give it away.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
All right, so we're getting to that. Like you live alone, or do you have children that live with you?
I live with a roommate who actually is my ex-boyfriend.
How's that go?
Whoa.
Well,
you kind of have to be grown ups, don't you?
We were in a relationship. We were renting this condo, and then the owners decided to sell it, so we had to move, and we discussed our options, and we decided to buy. So, and you know, we even discussed about, well, what if, you know, we hadn't been together that long, what if things don't turn out? Well, we got a big enough place. It's 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms. So, you know, if things didn't, you know, go well for us relationally, we could still make it work. So,
and you're doing
that's what happened. That's what happened.
But I'm saying, man, like, this is worth noting how grown up you have to be to do that. Like, that's really mature.
Right. Yeah. Well, and see, that's something. It's funny because was having this conversation with my sister and brother-in-law. My brother-in-law asked about that because I was talking to my daughters, because I'm very open with them about this guy that I was chatting with, and I was thinking I might be meeting. And my brother-in-law, well, what about? And of course, I didn't really know that he even really cared about my relationship with. But anyhow, he saw that as, what I said was, well, I have decided to just be friends and date other people. And he's like, well, is that how it is in your lifestyle?
My lifestyle.
And I said, I'm not sure if I understand the question.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you just go from one relationship to another. It's like, where does it end? Where does it end? And I said, well, I didn't have an answer at the moment because I was kind of dumbfounded that he was even asking me these questions. But what I finally said was, well, where I hope it ends is I find the right guy and spend the rest of my life with him.
There you go. Like everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, it's the same thing, you know, but this whole ideal of you meet one person, fall in love, and you're with them the rest of your life. That's just not what most people experience, you know?
Very true. Very
true.
And
of course, you know, if I had, you know, had the courage to come out many years when I was younger, then maybe I would be with that person right now, and not still looking. But, you know.
So,
well, you're here now.
Here's part of my stereotype showing up. Are you a good cook?
Actually, I have a pretty good cook.
Yeah. That figures.
No, jeez.
I can play the dumbass.
Yeah.
It's kind of true, actually. So what about, Bob and I are both junkies with movies and like TV episodic series and stuff. What do you do for entertainment in that realm?
Well, my favorite TV show is The Big Bang Theory.
Okay.
Oh. That's a good one.
So, and other than that, I don't watch a lot of TV. I mean, I watch the news, you know, I watch CNN, and, you know, of course, you know, these days it's like I only can take so much of that.
Yeah.
I like to read. So I'm working on a book. I'm working on a book about Martin Luther King, his autobiography right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I saw where you read a book by Jay Baker, and we talked about being on the Baker campus there for their water park. But I mean, what was your experience with Jay Baker? Was that part of the stepping stones out of Christianity?
That was one of the stepping stones out, because because you know, part of that book was that they have a gay affirming church, and it was very refreshing. It was like kind of heading me down the path I was on at the time.
Yeah. Well, it's not literally an opiate, but do you have a libation or some kind of escape from?
I just like a good Cabernet.
Yeah, sure.
Red wine, good, you know, and it's actually good for you too. So
right.
Good red. How about craft beers? Anything like that? Just a thought.
Not too much. I'm a kind of a Blue Moon shock top.
Oh, sure. Gotcha. Yeah.
With an orange?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
I'm a fruity guy. I'll admit it.
Well, it's Sunday. What are you going to do with the rest of your day?
Let's see. I'll have some lunch and I'll go to the gym in a little bit.
You work out?
Yeah.
Good for
as
you.
much as possible. Yeah.
Well, thanks for talking to us, Matt. It's been a pleasure to meet you.
It really has, man.
Well, it's been my pleasure as well.
So that's our interview with Matt Vollmer. I hope you enjoyed it. We're going to feature a couple of his songs, but I just wanted to say that Matt and so many of our guests, their lives have been wrecked by religion and set back, at least in some ways. And yet our guests are so chipper. They're so vibrant, and it's as if they've found new life. It's as if they've been truly born again, post-faith, post-Christianity. And this is evidence of the resilience of human beings and our attempt to pursue happiness, to pursue truth, and if it takes us past our former beliefs, then so be it. And I'm just really encouraged by all these testimonies, if you will, to borrow a Christian word, or life stories that people are willing to share on the air and be an encouragement to each other. If you want to be on the show, contact me. My email is midgley.cass@gmail.com. That's MIDGLEY. So here's some music by Matt Vollmer. We'll see you next week.
Never thought I could be feeling so much joy in the space between horizons that I used to do my best to avoid. Always desperate just to figure it out. Never leave room for doubt. But there is beauty in uncertainty, never knowing what's in store. Essentially, we are a symphony, and we are making up the score as we go. Can't imagine who might step into my path, intercepting a disaster like a curveball I could never catch. 'Cause you know I could be the stubborn one, wishing life could be redone. But there is beauty in uncertainty, never knowing what's in store. Essentially, we are a symphony, and we are making up the score as we go. There is beauty in uncertainty. There is beauty in the space between horizons. There is beauty in uncertainty, never knowing what's in store. Essentially, life is a mystery, and there is always so much more than we know. There is beauty in uncertainty, never knowing what's in store. Essentially, we are a symphony, and we are making up the score as we go. There's so much more than we know. filling up the pages in the novel that I call my life. Every chapter has the perfect ending, questions answered, hunger satisfied. But when I drop the plot line, fiction is replaced with something grand and undefined. And I see love rising up to greet me from the ashes of my hollow dreams. I see the world like a newborn baby, all because I'm letting go of the things I think I know. Well, I would barely know you after years or after a few days. If all I ever see is my reflection and it keeps me far away. But when I drop the mirror, the lines of beauty etched upon your face speak louder and clearer. And I see love rising up to greet me from the ashes of my hollow dreams. I see the world like a newborn baby, and it's all because I'm letting go of the things I think I know. Consider me out of my mind when I say I've never been more sure. Undoubtedly every time there's an angle I had not planned